Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Town Council regular meeting, October 17. And so we will begin tonight, as we usually do, with a roll call. I'll ask our town clerk to do that. Present. Here. Here. Here.
Member Dellinger. Here. Councilmember Behringer.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Council, for being present. And I was a few minutes late myself tonight, I believe. At this point in time, I'm going to ask Councilmember Mr. Dellinger if he will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and also our invocation. If you can stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seated.
Join me in the invocation if you wish. Thank you for this opportunity for us all to come together and serve this town and our community. Thank you for the blessings of peace and safety and health, and be with those in our town and community struggling with the same. Be with those in the Middle East, particularly Israel and the Gaza Strip, in these terrible times. Be with the families and friends of those lost to unspeakable barbaric violence that's killed so many innocent people, and make sure that the perpetrators are made to account. Be with those who are currently held hostage, and be with their families and friends as well. May your will be done, that they are returned safely to their families and homes soon. Be also with the innocent men, women, and children in Gaza, struggling for medical care, fresh water, food, and safe shelter. And we ask you to protect all the innocent from harm, of different faiths, but the same God. May you impart the will for your justice and your peace over blinding hate and violence in all our hearts, and ultimately bring peace and difficult reconciliation to all those who have endured fear, terror, distrust, violence, and death for so many generations in this conflict. Through your grace, may we never take for granted the efforts of so many here in our community and home and abroad who strive to keep our community safe and welcoming for all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mr. Dellinger. You reminded us through the invocation of portions of our world that everybody's aware of that is really struggling. I encourage you to remember and do what you can to encourage. The next item of business is something we call petitions and comments. If you came desiring to do that, we usually ask you to sign up with our town clerk, and I'll ask her at this time, do you have any persons who have signed up? Ms. Gibson, okay. Notwithstanding that, if you have come with the intent this evening of desiring to speak to the council during this time, I will try to recognize those of you who are here for that purpose. This would be for those not here to testify on any item on the agenda, but on something else. Is there anyone who desires to do that at this time? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we will move along with the agenda, and I'll ask the council if I can get a motion for adoption of the agenda with one caveat. We already have a closed session that is scheduled at the end of our regular agenda, and I believe Councilmember Dellinger's requested an add-on to that for...
Thanks.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add on discussion of personnel matter, A6, to the closed session.
Okay. So with that add-on, council, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposition, no, and there is none. All right. No presentations tonight that I'm aware of, so we'll move along to the consent agenda. We have 3 items there. Council, you see those. Unless somebody has a need to pull an item, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Vance, approved by seconded by Mr. Matthews. Okay, if you're in favor of approving the consent agenda, would you vote aye?
Aye.
If If there's any opposition, no, and there is none. Okay, thank you so much. All right, we're going to move to our first item of business. We have two public hearings tonight. The first hearing is a Tier 2 conditional rezoning, and we'll recognize Ms. Ashley Harris for that. Ms. Harris, welcome. We're glad to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay. If you'll lead us in this, we'll appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This is Vintage Garner, conditional zoning CZ MP 2214. The applicant is Tom Johnson, attorney for Williams & Mullen, representing the applicant. The owners are the Lee and Hudgens Enterprise LLC, and the site is located off of US 401. It is approximately 43.26 acres, and this is a Tier 2 master sketch plan with written conditions. The request is to rezone from light industrial and rural agricultural to commercial mixed-use conditional. It would be for the development of a maximum of 654 multifamily units and approximately 40,000 square feet of commercial space. The site location, as I mentioned, this is off of US 401 Fayetteville Road. And then you can see Old Stage Road here to the east and Farm Road to the north. You can also see the existing railroad corridor that does divide these into two parcels. Here is a photo of the existing conditions of the site. It is currently mostly undeveloped. Adjacent land use and zoning, so directly to the north is a combination of commercial mixed use and some residential. There is a mini storage and some various retail there. To the south is industrial uses. To the east is a mixture of commercial mixed use and residential and industrial. There's a convenience store with fuel sales there on the corner, and then some vacant lots as well. And to the west is outside of the town's jurisdiction that falls under Wake County's, and it is R40W, and it's currently a landfill use. Some recent zoning history. Most recently, you can see that CZ MP 2204, the Swift Creek Apartments, was approved for rezoning for multifamily just further south on Fayetteville Road. We also had in 2022 a Tier 1 rezoning for 401 South along Fayetteville Road, and that was to light industrial conditional. So the site is currently zoned a mixture of light industrial and rural agricultural. The light industrial district is intended to provide a limited range of low intensity uses. Operations are intended to be not noxious or offensive to any adjacent properties and are mostly limited to inside the building. The rural agricultural district is primarily an agriculture and civiculture type district with some large lot single family uses. Other typical uses include utility structures, and property zone RA are typically outside of the corporate limits where there's limited public water and sewer. This property also falls within the Commercial Highway Overlay District. The CHO was established to provide for functional transportation corridors, expand economic opportunity and protect community character, and preserve and promote the community's appearance and quality. The full overlay is outlined in Article 5.14 of the UDO, but none of the prohibited uses are proposed for this rezoning. The applicant has proposed a number of zoning conditions, including a permitted use table. I won't read through all of these, but I'll hit some highlights. So they have divided the property into a residential component and a commercial component, which I will point out when the master plan comes up. So in the residential category, the permitted uses are limited to multifamily, upper story residential, security or caretaker's quarters, and group care. You can also see in the commercial area, they're allowing for some civic and institutional uses here, and a number of commercial, office, and retail uses, including convenience stores, retail and food services, daycare centers, gyms, pools, and spas, personal or professional services, banks and financial institutions, sales and retail, and veterinarians. Also in the commercial component, they're allowing for some indoor athletic or entertainment facilities, some outdoor athletic or entertainment facilities, public park, passive open space or nature parks, and other indoor recreational uses not listed. They would also allow for a microbrewery in that area. And on both the residential and commercial area, they are allowing for some utility uses. There is an existing cell phone tower on the site, which is why these were included. The maximum building height for the multifamily will utilize the provision of the UDO that allows for an additional 12 feet of height for each additional foot of setback. Buildings 1 and 8 shown on the master plan will include a minimum of 2,500 square feet of co-working space, and EV parking spaces will be provided in both the residential and commercial areas of the master plan at a rate of 1 EV space per 50 parking spaces, and the details of that would be worked out with the site plan. They will also provide a mural on the side of one of the commercial or retail buildings interior to the site. They will plant all plant material within the development would be native or non-invasive species. An enhanced pedestrian corridor with associated design elements, including pedestrian scale lighting, would be provided as shown on the master plan. Fencing around the SCM will meet UDO requirements. An additional 10 feet shall be added to the required Neuse River riparian buffer, as shown on the site plan. A shared parking agreement will be submitted for the multifamily and commercial uses. All multifamily buildings will have a flat roof with HVAC equipment mounted on the roof, which will be screened by parapet walls. All multifamily and commercial entrances will include annual planting beds to be changed out at least 2 times per year. And a trail will be provided around the SCM as part of this rezoning. And finally, on this page, a dog park amenity including a minimum of 3,000 square feet will be provided in phase 1 or 2 of the multifamily portion of the development. For the active open space, they're committed to a minimum of 10,000 square feet of active outdoor open space provided at the buildings containing the leasing and indoor amenities. Some of the amenities that they are proposing are swimming pool, cornhole, bocce ball, etc. The locations and design of which would be determined with the site plan. And they will provide a public plaza for a minimum of 4,000 square feet in the commercial portion of the development. The overall neighborhood character is a mix of existing residential, light industrial, and highway-oriented development. It's highly influenced by US 401 as the primary traffic facility. This project would have approximately 700 feet of frontage along Fayetteville Road and 1,800 feet of frontage along Farm Road, both of which would be widened and improved. As a general background information, we've provided some traffic counts for you here, and those are also listed in your staff report. A TIA was submitted for this project. It was completed in November of 2022. NCDOT's Congestion Management Unit recommended an additional left turn lane on Farm Road, an additional southbound right turn lane at the intersection of Farm Road and US 401, a dedicated southbound right turn lane at Site Driveway 1, and an additional U-turn lane at the Leonard Buildings driveway south of the project. The applicant did hold 2 neighborhood meetings, the first of which was on October 6, 2022. There were approximately 3 people in attendance. And there was a meeting held in April of this year. Again, approximately 3 people were in attendance, and those meeting summaries should be included in your agenda packet. The area of the site is approximately 43.26 acres. Of that, 37 acres is residential and about 6 acres is commercial. The maximum unit count would be 654 units. And the commercial would be about 40,000 square feet. The CMX district does have 2 standards for the setbacks. one for the large residential structures and one for the non-residential. The one thing that I will call out here is that the maximum height in the residential can get up to 57 feet with that additional 1 foot of setback per foot of height. And in the non-residential area, there is no limit as long as there is an SUP. So here is the project master plan. This would be the Fayetteville Road, and then Farm Road here for context. The existing railroad, which divides the site into multiple parcels, the back of which would be permanent tree save area. This is the existing cell phone tower, which will remain on site. A buffered stream and associated wetlands here. A trail that runs around the perimeter of the stream as well as around the stormwater management. There are two main amenity areas, this one further back and then closer to the commercial. Some carriage units included near those leasing centers, here and here. There are also some, There are also some garage that are available for lease here, some dog washes, a open space amenity here, and a dog park in the center area here. The yellow represents the portions of the project that would have the enhanced pedestrian network, which includes some wider sidewalks, some pedestrian scale lighting, and some additional amenities. This portion would be the commercial portion. You can see they are proposing 4 sort of commercial parcels here. And then the enhanced pedestrian path with a public plaza fronting this commercial parcel here. Here is a rendering of what the project is envisioned to look like. You can see the commercial in the front with the multifamily and amenities in the back. And this is an example of the level of design that the amenity area would have. The tree canopy cover is a sliding scale of 18 to 20%. The master plan envisions 20% of preservation. The perimeter buffers are a 15-foot buffer to the southern property line, and then the street buffers along Farm Road and US 401. Street trees will be provided approximately every 40 feet along all roadways, and additional street trees will be provided in vehicle service areas along property lines at the rate of 1 per every 40 feet. The open space required is 10%, which is approximately 4.24 acres. The total open space planned is 14%. Active open space will be a minimum of 25% of that. Open space areas will be maintained by the property manager and will be met with a combination of a clubhouse, swimming pool, dog parks, private trails, and public plaza. There are FEMA designated floodplains and associated buffers at the western boundary of the project, the majority of which is on that primary tree save area, some of which does come over into this parcel, which is reserved for stormwater management. The site will be serviced by City of Raleigh Water and Sewer. The water will connect to existing service in US 401, and the line will be extended through the site and along public streets. A sanitary sewer pump station will be installed on site with a force main feeding into existing lines in Maxwell Drive. Sewer lines will be extended to adjacent and upstream properties per Raleigh water policy. At preliminary plat, we will review again the lighting, the stormwater, and the water line and hydrants, as well as the landscaping and parking requirements. The next steps for this project, after you hear the comments tonight, would be to go to Planning Commission for a review of plan consistency. A preview of what that conversation will look like. The site is currently designated as corridor commercial, which is the red here on the map, and it is at the edge of both a mixed-use commercial focus area change. Finally, the project will come back to you again for final action and determination of reasonableness. So for tonight, staff recommends that once council has heard comments, concerns, and questions from the public, that the request be referred to Planning Commission for their review regarding plan consistency. And the applicant has prepared a few slides and is here to speak as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harris. As is our custom, I'll see if council has any questions for you. I'll start to my left with Mr. Matthews.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mr. Singleton, anything?
One curiosity question, Ms. Harris, the driveway into the, toward the western end of the project into the multifamily that's not directly across from the street, the street that's down there, the Shoe Drive. This is a little further west.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Behringer? Mr. Dellinger?
Just a question on the height maximum. And that height maximum, it's a maximum, which means they could do 3 if they wanted to, but it would preclude them. This is a 4-story maximum height, right, with this number?
I believe so, yeah. We're proposing, I think, 4 and 5 stories, but the applicant should be able to speak to that. Yeah.
I'll get that confirmation. Another question, there's no mention of any workforce housing allotments.
Not that I'm aware of with this project.
And the last one of it this time is the flood. This entire parcel is in the Swift Creek critical watershed, correct?
I believe that it fell into one of the exempt parcels. I would have to confirm. Yeah, so it was existing exempt.
But that was for permeability, but it still is in the designated critical area, and it's abuts tributaries that go directly into the.
Engineering's gonna address that for you.
Good evening.
Hey.
This is within the Swift Creek watershed. The critical area is a smaller area, much closer to Lake Benson. But this is within the watershed that feeds to Swift Creek, yes. So we still have, aside from the exemptions that took place with the Swift Creek Land Management Plan, there still is a requirement to treat for the water quality that is required as part of the water supply watershed rules that we enforce.
I'll check it again later because there are 2 different critical areas. There's one closer to Lake Benson, which is almost immediately around, and then there's a further part, and it kind of delineated by 401. On the west side, there's a critical watershed area, and I guess my concern is just that 25-year containment. Anytime we're in the watershed gives me concern when we have approved a previous project and they volunteered 100-year, so it does give me pause.
And we do require at least the 25-year storm detention everywhere in town. That's part of our UDO, so that would be required everywhere. And then where we require the 100-year right now is still fairly limited, but I know we've talked about that quite a bit, so it's certainly something that they could offer to do and that we could recommend that they propose doing.
Thank you. That's all I have right now.
Mr. Vance?
Question for the developer. Good.
For Ms. Harris? Okay.
For Ms. Harris.
Anybody want to second round with Ms. Harris? Okay, everybody good? Okay, I believe that's all. We'll hear from the applicant at this time, I believe.
I'm probably not going to use those because you did such a good job with yours, so I think that would be a repeat.
Just give us your name and
I
address.
will.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Johnson. I'm with the law firm of Williams Mullen at 301 Fayetteville Street, Suite 1700 in Raleigh, here on behalf of the applicant. And I'm mainly, Ashley did such a good job really going over the basics. I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the project and what we're planning to do. Again, it's commercial mixed use with the commercial on the front, residential in the back. They will be 4-story buildings. And the part on the western side of the railroad will remain as just preservation tree space. undisturbed, even though that's in the floodplain, that will not be disturbed. Cell tower will remain in place as it is today. So that's just an overview of what we're going to do and what the plan is, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, well, I'll start with Mr. Vance. I believe he had one.
He had a
for the
question, yeah.
applicant. Yes.
Yes, Attorney Johnson, in reference to, this dovetails with what Mr. Dillinger was saying pertaining to workforce housing. As you well know, that Garner is growing tremendously when it comes to residential. And in the area of workforce housing, has a percentage of this particular development and mixed use been considered for workforce affordable housing?
That is not part of the project at this time. These would be market rate, but again, it would provide some quantity of housing that's not there, and with quantity comes more reasonable rents as you have competition. But beyond that, there's not a set aside for workforce housing or affordable housing as part of this project.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger, you're next.
The height maximum, so is there a commitment to 4? Would it'd be prudent to require 4 or go to 5?
I mean, I think of that height is going to be limited to 4 anyway, but I can just make sure.
Well, but it could also be 3.
Yeah, I mean, we're not building more than 4, so it's
Right. Yeah, we're not building any more than 4. We're not going higher than
Are
4.
you going lower than 4?
Now, the plan would.
I want sort of firm up how many, the actual height, and not end up with 3 stories that may not require elevators, for example, which creates accessibility issues for folks. So
The plan is that all these to be 4 stories, so they would have elevators for accessibility.
Yeah, right now, every building is.
you would commit to no less than 4.
Yeah.
I do have some open space questions, but I will leave those for someone else to probably chime in on. On the 100-year flood containment, and I think need to be some more discussion with staff on the designated areas, but there was a previous project on Swift Creek, and they did 100-year flood containment. And the reason is because it's watershed, there are more 100-year flood events, and it's part of the drinking supply. So,
Well, I mean, our plan would be to do what's normally required. This is not in a critical watershed. It's in the Swift Creek watershed, but not in a critical watershed. And certainly we will comply with that, as we've shown, the stormwater control management that we have on the property.
I think the conflict is it being in the Swift Creek Land Management Zone. Yes, it is sort of commercial-ish, but it's primarily residential, which
Correct.
lends itself to adding more density than is initially or originally intended for Swift Creek land use management plan. And so therefore, sort of behooves us to be more protective of the watershed if we're going to allow that level of density that wasn't originally intended. That's the only question I have. I've got a couple more, but I'll pass
Okay,
on.
all right. Ms. Barringer. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, condition 15 talks about a minimum of 10,000 square feet of active outdoor open space, provided the leasing and indoor amenities. I'm looking, we have 2 pools and amenity area around there. I'm looking for a nice big chunk of green space, not the 4,000-foot plaza up at the commercial area. A big chunk of space for kids to play. Green. We got 3,000 square foot for dog park to be sure we can get 10,000 square feet for humans with 654 units. Looking a big square or big rectangular, big rectangle, excuse me.
Well, there's a lot of green space that's in here that, back toward obviously the stormwater control facility, there's green space there. There is, green space all around. We'll certainly consider whether we could provide some green space in other areas or in another way, but as of right now, that's the green space we're providing, and obviously providing the additional trails for walking and that sort of thing around the stormwater management pond and in that area. And there's green space along the southern border, and we are providing additional 10 feet of buffer, riparian buffer over and above what's required.
Well, the open space is the key here. I've been on here a long time and approved projects that probably shouldn't have been approved because they had no green space. One's right beside my office, 200 townhomes. There's empty space in front of my office that the kids come over there and play on because we didn't provide it. Now, it's my fault and everybody else's who approved that, and they need areas to play. We are building new parks, but there are going to be no parks in this area for a long time. We need parks with open space, not trees, not landscape, big areas. A big multi-purpose field is 100 by 100. If you built one of those or two of those, but the little green space around the amenity, that doesn't cut it. You can't get out there and play ball if they want to play ball or play frisbee. The green space needs to be centralized into green space where I can look on the map and see it, not a little outline around here and a little outline around there. We're pretty much telling all projects now, you've got to put in big parts of green space, or I won't support any project like that. You know, the green space around the stormwater pond, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for flat areas. We're looking for an area like this all the way to the front of town hall, so the kids can roll the ball out, play. Adults, I see adults across the parking lot from my office. I see kids. It's also used as a dog park, but that's another story. You do provide dog park, which I compliment you on. But we need a large area of green space, natural area. Just telling you like it is.
No,
that's what we're going to have.
I understand what you're saying, and obviously that's in a lot of situations the parks are there for that purpose. But in this case, the plan is to have a lot of pedestrian areas that are open, with the retail at the front, to have a pedestrian plaza where folks can eat outside, as well as if there were a restaurant there, they could eat outside or gather outside. We've done it in that way. Yes, so the dog parks, people want dog parks, so we're providing those. And then there's obviously the swimming pool and that kind of amenity that children can take advantage of as well, in addition to the other outdoor amenities. But we will certainly take that into consideration based upon your comments here today.
And I appreciate that, but the swimming pools are open May through September. That's 5 months, at least 7. So, and we talk about parks. Parks are expensive. We're in the process of building 2 now. Right. We bought land. We've been smart about trying to buy open space or land that's got trees on it and won't be developed. But kids need a place to play. There is no other place around here for them to play. So I'm just saying that's something that's this council will be looking at.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that input.
Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't go over what anybody else has said, but I'm very familiar with this area. I've just about grew up around. I was wondering when something was going to go out there, and what you're presenting here, I like where on the comment side where all the commercial is up there on that 401 corridor, because it is extremely busy.
Right.
And the way you've got it laid out, I like. I'm here lately. I've been visiting a lot of other communities and around us and seeing what they're doing, and so many of them having the same issues that we're having. And but as far as the general layout, other than some little particular things that's already been brought forth, I think it's a very good-looking project, and I think the commercial will do it extremely well there, depending on what you put into it. And I like what you have brought forward at this time. That's all my comments, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm going to go around one more time. Start back with Mr. Vance if he has anything else.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Dellinger, any follow-up?
Yeah, I want to follow up as well on the open space.
Sure.
Bless you. And I think what would be helpful in the presentations, and I think this is to staff as well, is a breakdown of the open space, because we have now in the new UDO, we have active and passive, and we have certain parts that can be counted as part of retention ponds. We have certain parts of tree preservation and buffers that be considered open space. So it's very hard to determine the breakdown of where the open space is coming from. Like there was another project where just eyeballing it, the 401, where it was clearly not 25%, it was a PUD. I was clearly not 25% there, just eyeballing it. And even with this one, it's difficult because you've got the cell tower area, you've got a railroad, you've got trees on the other side of the railroad, so which parts aren't. And you probably all know that because you broke it down, but it'd be helpful for us to see it. But to Mr. Singleton's point, I think he echoes my sentiments on open space and amenities that aren't hard amenities or active space amenities. So I think that and the flood containment and the workforce housing are sort of issues that are kind of giving me pause at this time. I think too, just the general comment, I think in a transition period where we are with our UDO and our Garner Forward,
Right.
the CMX is born of office and old UDO, office and institutional,
Right.
service business, commercial retail. And this is more heavy on the residential versus the commercial or integrated commercial. And so that it's a weird transition point to come in, because we do need more commercial. And ideally, if we're going to put in commercial, it's a destination place for other people to come. And that's sort of what the UDO says. This district serves as a wide range of users, draw customers for outside of the town, so Raleigh and Fuquay and places like that. And you're sort of there with some of the seating areas, like there's a lot of that, but it seems like there could be a little bit more commercial on that front end, again, to sort of build up the tax base as well. It's helpful in that regard. So.
And the commercial's there, and this is conceptual on the commercial. We don't know how that will break out. It could be the 4 pads like we show here. It could be 2. We wanted the flexibility based upon the demand for the commercial. The other good thing about this and what you have with this sort of mixed use is you've got folks that live in those apartments who go to the commercial and don't have to get out on the road to do that. And I know you've heard that and are aware of that. But that's some of what we try to do too, in addition to folks going up and down 401 and needing to stop in there for whatever services and or restaurants or whatever's available there. So that's going to be there regardless. I know we've had some discussions about this in the past a little bit. There become some challenges because of parking requirements for apartments. And I know I've been up here asking for reductions before. That versus open space gets to be a challenge sometimes too. And some jurisdictions like Raleigh have eliminated a lot of parking minimums. That may be something to consider, because that does then free up some open space, because typically, at the rate you're looking at, you would not need quite that much parking, but we're meeting that requirement. And those are just some input I can give based upon what you're telling me. And the reduced parking also helps impervious and helps from a environmental point of view in that regard. So I do make that point, because we had some discussions about parking. That's why we're doing the shared parking agreement, because that helped us reduce some of that parking to be able to share that with the commercial, which is allowed under the UDO. So those are just some of the points I made, but I appreciate your input, and we'll take that when we come back to you and go to the Planning Commission and come back to you based on your comments, certainly.
And I think it'd be favorable to even go higher, to go to 5, and you could address some of maybe these open space and have even more reserved commercial area. I know the parking is an issue, but also know the UDO sort of, if you ask for it, gives you an automatic reduction, which I don't know how that plays out in reality.
Right.
So that was another question for staff on the parking and the wording in the UDO. All they have to do is write a request to get a reduction, and they kind of are automatically granted a reduction, which kind of makes the current standard not really a standard. It's actually 20% less than what's written down.
Right.
So I think it's good, but I think the open space, there's some issues we have to, I think, work out.
So no, and I appreciate that and appreciate that input. And we'll work on with staff and come out with an exhibit that shows the open space pretty clearly, so you can understand that. That would not be a hard thing to come up with. So we'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else for Ms.
I
Johnson?
have a question. Am I looking at this correctly? The southwest corner of Farm Road and Fayetteville Street, that will be undeveloped but with tree preservation, or am I interpreting that incorrectly?
That's flexible, because we don't know. There may be parking there for some of the commercial and retail, so that may not be all open space. Again, that's to leave the flexibility so far as how the design of that commercial space is in the future. Since this is a master plan, we wanted that flexibility.
I too would like to see a little bit more defined open space when we're talking about kids. They don't need to be in the house all the time.
Sure. Well, certainly we understand and take that comment to heart.
Okay, anything here further?
Just follow up what Mr. Vance and Dellinger said in consideration of affordable housing for
Thank you. I appreciate that input as well.
Okay, is that it, council? Okay, everybody have their question?
Question
Okay,
on the
go ahead.
parcel. So it's one track currently? I see multiple parcels on here, and I'm curious, is this phased, or because he proposed property lines that I couldn't see in, what is the,
There was we had to do a recombination because there were some old property lines, but I don't think there are any phasing lines on here.
And there are, the commercial, there aren't now, it's one
Yeah,
parcel.
it's one parcel now, but yeah, to that degree, yes, between the commercial and residential, there will be a division. But aside from that, so that we could be able to deal with out parcels and that sort of thing as we have commercial developers come in. So we wanted that
Sir,
flexibility on that.
We have some sort of regulation had to go by. If we need to get his name and address.
Yeah, I'll get that to the
Okay,
clerk.
all right.
I'll get Tyler's name to the clerk. I had
Really, we would
that
ask him to
agreement with her before the hearing.
Okay,
So I appreciate that.
all right,
Mayor, I'll make sure I do
all
that.
right, good, yeah. All right, anything else?
I would just point out these red dash lines are labeled as proposed property lines, and this one in the middle is also labeled a proposed phase line. So I believe it would be 2 phases of apartments.
Again, that's flexible, but yes, Ashley's right in terms of having phasing lines on there.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right. I believe we're through with Mr. Johnson. Do you have other persons who plan to speak?
I don't have anybody else at this time. If there are
Okay.
any other questions later, we'll be happy to come up and answer those as well.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. You don't have anything else, do you, Ms. Harris?
That's all.
Okay, council, you've heard the offer there. Anybody else have a question for the applicant? If not, I'm going to throw this open to the public. This is a public hearing, so if you came here this evening desiring to make a comment or speak on this issue, if you would let it be known, I will recognize you at this time. Are there any persons who are here for that purpose? Okay, don't see anybody. So I believe that we covered everybody that you wanted to present, and so we covered the town. So I'm going to close the public hearing. And, excuse me, go ahead.
no, I mean, we did this for the 401 project, and I think it was beneficial to keep the hearing open and for them to bring those changes back to council so that we could see them before they go to planning commission. I thought it was very helpful for both us and the applicant. That's not a
So you're saying hold it open for changes in the conditions for at what point? Because it will go to planning commission first, correct?
Yes.
If we close the
Right.
hearing.
But you could do conditions, we could change conditions in front of council when it comes back to council. I'm fine to keep the public hearing open until then to be able to make any revisions if we need to at that time. Does that make sense?
I think what he's saying is that we'd like to continue it, make the changes and bring it back to us.
Yes.
Then we'll discuss it, then it'll go to the planning commission.
Yes.
What we did with the recent project, or 2 recent projects. Make some suggestions. We talked about open space, and I mean, if this went to planning commission like this and came back, then we'd do the same thing. We'd say, all right, that's not gonna work. So you might as well go ahead and address it now, because then we could send it back to the planning commission again if it was changed. So the opportunity to make changes and incorporate some of the things that we have said is now. So what we should do is continue the public hearing until such time you're ready to come forward with this plan with some of the recommended changes, and then we'll continue the public hearing, and then we'll see what goes at that meeting.
What if we made the changes and took them in front of the planning commission, which we can, and they would hear it, and then it can come back in front of this board? I'd prefer to do that if we could keep it on target for that.
But the planning commission is has a different charge than we do, as you know what it is.
Right, I do.
They're not going to come up here and sit up here and say, you need more open space. They're going to look at how it fits the UDO as it applies to that and their technical review committee. So You know,
Well,
do it now or do it later.
my point was we could make those and put them in front of the planning commission, then the changes would come before you at your subsequent meeting. And that's what I was suggesting. I'd prefer that to continuing the public hearing to another date, especially since we didn't have anybody else speak. I think, I would feel like we might be able to work it out between now and the next council meeting.
I'll second Gray's motion.
Well, I would say, obviously, if we continue it, the quicker you're able to move and get with staff with the proposed changes, then, of course, the quicker it can come back before this council, and then we'll pick up with back to the planning commission. I'm hearing a motion to
Okay, I understand.
Continue the hearing.
To continue the hearing, yeah.
Incorporate the changes and bring it back at a future meeting, and then we'll continue the public hearing and talk about what has been presented at that time. And then it may be moved forward to the planning commission, or it may not, but that would be the next logical step if the council is comfortable with the changes that have been discussed.
Second.
Was there any other comments you want to make?
My only question is, what's the soonest we could bring it back to council should the motion pass?
A point of order. There's a motion on the floor.
There is a
Go ahead, you can do
motion
the
on floor,
motion.
yeah,
That's fine,
okay.
and then I'll
We
ask
will,
that
yeah,
question.
Okay, that'll be fine, yeah. All right. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. If you favor the motion to continue the hearing at this time to a date not yet determined, would you vote aye?
Aye.
To your opposition, you can vote no. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We'll hold this open. Now, your question.
What's the
was-
timing of when we could bring it
Okay,
back?
well-
The earliest we could bring it back?
So because it was not continued to a date certain, it will require additional public hearing notice of 10 to 25 days before, so we'd have to time it. So likely it could not make the 6th meeting. The earliest would probably be the second meeting in November, which I believe is the 21st.
Is it
Have to
possible
look
to
at the
continue it to a date certain? Would the council consider doing that so we wouldn't have to republish the notice?
What date would you request?
6 would be fine. We can address it by the 6th of November.
Council, what say you in regards to if the applicant wants to bring it back that soon, to keep the
Just the
process
21st,
moving
because
along?
we know that there's at least 2 projects coming before us on the 6th, and maybe more.
Right, but that's the night before a big day.
Correct.
So,
I will amend the motion to Tuesday, November the 21st as a specific date to continue the public hearing. That way there won't have to be notice will not have to be given. Is that correct, Ms. Jones?
Right, if that motion carries, then no additional notice will go out.
Okay.
I mean, it will still be posted on the website, on the town website, but no mailed notice.
Is that the next meeting after the 6th? Is the 21st?
Yes, sir.
And that's the Tuesday of Thanksgiving, just so you're aware.
I'm aware.
okay, I believe, do you want to amend the motion that was already
Yes, sir.
passed?
I amended, I
think we can
amended
do
the
that.
motion to the 21st specific date, and Mr. Dillinger just seconded it.
Second.
All right, council, you ready to vote? If you favor the amended motion, we'll bring it back on the 21st. That's the intent.
November.
Yeah, of November. Would you vote aye?
Aye.
Any opposition? There is none.
Thank you.
So, okay, thank you for your presentation, sure enough. Thank you, Ms. Harris. All right, we'll move to the next item at this time. Item number 2, Tier 2 Conditional Rezoning, CZMP 2301. That's you again, Ms. Harris, isn't it? Yeah.
Me
Okay,
again.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so this is conditional zoning CZMP 2301, the Dover Light Industrial property. The applicant is Alex Hale of Windsor Commercial, and the owners are the Dover Properties 2 LLC. The location is along East Garner Road, and the tract size is approximately 3.75 acres. This is a Tier 2 request, which is the master sketch plan and written conditions. It is to rezone from residential to light industrial conditional LIC 14, light industrial conditional LIC 73, 2, light industrial conditional LIC 271 for the development of an additional industrial shell building. Here is the site location. You can see some existing larger residential lots along East Garner Road, the Ashland subdivision here, East Garner Middle School just south of the site, and this is I-40 and the St. Wooten gravel operation. Here is an image of the existing conditions of the site. You can see the existing building, which is proposed to remain. To the north is the heavy industrial, which is that St. Wooten Company property. To the south is a combination of the light industrial and the middle school there, which is zoned R2. To the east is also light industrial, and to the west is a combination of R2 and R4 single family. Some zoning history, most recently you can see that East Garner LLC and the East Garner Road case submitted by Bass, Nixon, and Kennedy. Each of those were associated with some industrial projects. And then other than that, there's been some limited rezoning in the area. The existing zoning, there are a number of existing zoning districts on site. It's R2, LI, and LI conditional, 2 different LI conditional districts. The R2 district is primarily low-density single-family and homes further away from non-residential areas. And then in the LI, it's those non-noxious uses and mostly limiting operations to inside the building. The property falls within the Commercial Highway Overlay District and the Limited Access Highway Overlay District. I would note in this area, the CHO replaced the former East Garner Road overlay, and then the LHO is associated with I-40 going through that area. None of the prohibited uses are proposed for this rezoning. The applicant has proposed a few zoning conditions, including a permitted use table. You can see that there are a number of civic and institutional uses, including assembly, civil and fraternal clubs, higher education, ambulatory health and emergency care, religious institutions, indoor and outdoor athletic facilities, and then a number of commercial and office and retail, including medical office, other office, convenience store, personal or professional services, some sales and retail, parking, self-storage, veterinarians, and vehicle sales, service, or repair. And also industrial flex space, microbrewery, wholesales, industrial manufacturing or production with indoor operations only, some minor utilities, and greenhouse or nursery. The applicant also proposes that 100% of plant material will be native species and that EFS will be limited to 25% of the building. The SCM will be black aluminum picket type fencing. Overall neighborhood character, this area is a mix of industrial, civic, institutional, and residential. Industrial being the most prominent land use, with the St. Wooten and the Martin Marietta Quarry along East Garner Road. That's mostly to the east of I-40, but that does carry over onto this side of I-40 some as well. The residential is limited to single-family homes closer to the intersection of Jones Sausage Road. The project will have approximately 270 feet of frontage along East Garner Road, and there are some general traffic counts provided for you in your staff report. This project also held 2 neighborhood meetings, the first of which was on March 23rd, 2023, and there were approximately 18 people that signed in on those sheets. And then a neighborhood meeting was held in August of this year, and approximately 4 people signed in on the sign-in sheets. The full neighborhood meeting packets are in your staff reports as well. The master plan general information, it is approximately 3.75 acres. The existing building is about 5,000 square feet, and the proposed building would be about 16,000 square feet. The lots and setbacks is a minimum lot width of 100 feet, the front setback of 50 feet, side setback of 25 feet, and rear setback of 50 feet. The corner side is 35 and the maximum height is 50 feet. So here is the proposed master plan. You can see East Garner Road here, and then this is High Hope Lane, which is a private access easement. There is a cross-access easement provided if the parcels next to it might develop one day. And then the existing building, the proposed building with a loading area that goes around the back, the proposed stormwater management. There is a buffered stream along the northern boundary, and I believe this is a 55-foot buffer along this boundary here. And then there is a multi-use path that will be installed along the frontage of the property on East Garner Road. This project will have 2 points of access off of that High Hope Lane, which is the 50-foot private access easement. The cross-access easement that I provided would go to the western property line, and then it would be curb gutter and the 10-foot multi-use path improvements along East Garner Road. Tree canopy cover is a sliding scale of 12 to 14%. The master plan envisions 12% minimum in preservation. The perimeter buffers are 25 feet along the northern boundary, but there is that buffered stream, and then 55 feet along the western boundary. And they will also provide street trees, approximately one every 40 feet along these streets and driveways. There's no parks and open space requirement for this commercial development. There are no FEMA designated floodplains. There is that existing stream. Water and sewer service will be provided by City of Raleigh. Water will connect to the existing main in East Garner Road, and sewer service will tie into existing lines to the west of the site along East Garner Road via force main. At preliminary plat, we will review again the lighting, the stormwater, water lines and hydrant, and landscaping and parking, that they are all meeting the UDO. The next steps for this project would be to go to Planning Commission for their review of plan consistency. As a preview, the site is currently designated as Corridor Light Industrial, which is that lighter lavender color on the screen. And finally, it will return to you for final determination of reasonableness. So for tonight, staff recommends that once you have heard from the general public, that the case be referred to Planning Commission for their review and recommendation. And that is all I have for you. I believe there's representatives from the applicant here just to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Harris. Let me see if council has any questions. I'll start with Ms. Behringer this time.
No, sir, not this time.
Okay, I'll go to my left to Mr. Singleton.
No, sir, not right now.
Okay, go back to my right to Mr. Dellinger.
No questions, just one quick question on the frontage. Is there any other screening that would need to be done? Like, this is information, I don't know.
In the CHO, there's screening for outdoor storage, but they're not proposing any of that at this point. If that was something that came up with site plan, that might be incorporated.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Matthews
Nothing at this time.
and Mr. Vance.
Questions?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harris. We'll be happy to hear from the applicant if you'll come forward and identify yourself and your address.
Hey, good evening. My name is John Frazier. I'm the project civil engineer with FLM Engineering. We're located at 8951 Harvest Oaks Drive, Suite 205 in Raleigh. It's 27615. And I'm representing the property owner in this request. I appreciate your time tonight. I'll be quick. Ms. Harris did an excellent job. I'll just provide maybe a little bit of background to help explain why this request is coming to you all tonight. Doer Properties owns the majority of the land that you see, all of the currently light industrial zone properties. And we were originally working on that additional shell building that they're proposing in terms of site layouts, and realized that to do the type of flex space that they want with loading in the back, we were getting kind of pinched with the way that property bends in, and so that prompted us to approach, or the owner to approach, the adjacent residential property, who had appeared to have quite a bit of undeveloped land at the back of their property, and they were willing to sell this 0.25 acre of residential that we're adding, just to kind of help reduce that pinch point and make the layout a little more usable for this flex space. And as you can see, that 0.25 acre that we're adding is most entirely comprised of that 55-foot perimeter buffer with a little bit of the SCM. So there'll actually be no built-upon area within that area that we're adding. And we're still maintaining up, as you can see, you can't even see any of the Ashland homes in this image here, but we're still maintaining a large distance away from any of the adjacent residential with our proposed flex space and the associated site improvements. But what this also does is it allows us to improve the existing site, bring it up to code for parking, accessibility. We're able to improve East Garner Road with the curb and gutter, a multi-use path, as you can see there, and then of course meet landscaping and other UDO requirements. But I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have, but that's the request in a nutshell, and why we're here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frazier. I'm sure there probably are some questions. I'll start with Mr. Vance this time.
Yes, Mr. Frazier. You had a public information workshop for the citizens.
Yes, sir.
And because of the UDO changes with the distance of notification, there were a number of citizens that were notified on Jones Sausage Road.
That's correct.
And will this project impact Jones Sausage Road?
No, sir. There's no impact to Jones Sausage that we anticipate with this project.
Oh, I have.
Okay, I'll skip around a little bit, go back to Mr. Matthews.
No question, sir.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger,
No questions.
Mr. Singleton.
Yes, this is just flex warehouse space that may have more than one use or one user.
That's correct. And for what it's worth, the intent is actually for the existing user to just expand into this space. But if that falls through, that's why we provided that list of permitted uses, just again, for maybe some multi-tenant type space. But the intent as it stands today is that user just expand into that space.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Behringer, anything? Follow up here. Okay, I believe that's all for now. Do you have anybody else who's planning to give testimony?
Only if there are additional questions.
Okay. All right, you've heard the offer, council. Any additional questions from anybody else? Thanks, sir.
Thank you all.
Okay. All right. Any discussion amongst staff regarding the process here? Ordinarily, we would refer this to the Planning Commission. I would close the public hearing. I didn't hear any sentiment about. Oh, excuse me. You're right. Thank you very much. If you're here tonight to speak at this public hearing, yes, now is your opportunity to do that. So are there persons here who desire to speak on this issue? For another purpose. Okay, thank you. All right. So, council, are you ready to move this on to the Planning Commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move that CZMP 23-01 be referred to the Planning Commission for consistency review and recommendation.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. If you favor the motion, would you vote aye?
Aye.
If you're opposed, no. And it is so ordered. Okay. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Harris. You got double duty tonight, didn't you? Okay. Okay, we are now to item 1 under new and old business. I think we're ready to take that up at this time. So we will, let's see, are you Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, I'll be presenting.
Okay.
Okay. Evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be presenting on behalf of the project team on the Meadowbrook Park Dam improvements and the bid award. This is to give a background on the park, dam, and pond, and also to get approval of the bid award for the dam breach portion. As part of the design in 2022, there was site assessments, and that's when we learned that there are some deficiencies in the current dam that exist on the site. Then we contracted with Trans Systems in November 2022 to provide additional engineering and design services for the breach of the dam and the drawdown of the pond. During that design process, we learned by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that we are mandated to do a 6-month drying period. So after we draw down the dam, we have to let it sit for 6 months to see the natural development of wetlands and streams through there. So we phased this out. So phase 1 is now the dam breach, pond drawdown, safely relocating native fish. And phase 2 comes 6 months later after we get to see those natural wetlands developed. This was funded in the FY24 CIP. We advertised the bid for the phase 1, which includes the pond drawdown and dam breach, for a good 4 weeks. We got 2 responsive bids and non-responsive. The non-responsive bid came in after the submission date. That you see on the screen, North State Environmental and Shamrock Construction, so very comparable. And we started with calling the references of North State Environmental, all positive references. So we are recommending awarding the bid to the lowest responsive bidder, North State Environmental. They were founded in 1994. They specialize in erosion control, stream restoration, and stormwater control. They're based out with Winston-Salem, and they have completed 13 dam removal projects. They received great and positive feedback from all the references they provided. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Singleton, do you have any questions, sir?
Yes, just to confirm, they're gonna draw down the pond. Whatever fish in there will be relocated, and it's gotta stay dry for 6 months. So will the breach be repaired now, or you don't repair the breach, you wait till it dries out, and then they assess it?
Yeah, so the sequence of it will be, we draw down the pond to a certain level, safely relocate the fish, then continue that. They'll breach the dam that's there and create like a smaller channel, and then that's when the drying period will begin.
Okay. Ms. Behringer, any questions?
No, no questions.
Mr. Matthews, any questions?
Just glad you checked out the references. It's always a good thing.
Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, mine's sort of a then what question. So there's the 6-month drying period, and then what's the next sort of step or phase we're in?
Yeah, so once that 6 months is up, we will go back out there with our consultants, and that's when the phase 2, which is the pond amenity portion of the project. And right now we have a 30% design on that, but until we see these natural wetlands develop, we don't want to progress that design. Yeah.
Mr. Vance.
Questions has been asked and answered.
Okay.
Good to go.
Thank you for not repeating. Fine. Anything else down here for Ms. Rodriguez? Okay, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I just would note for the council, this project has come in on budget, so we're excited to share that with you. This was a project we weren't expecting to have to do, and so we're excited that the bids have come in on budget.
Thank you. Yes, we're all happy about that.
Very good news.
It's always important to highlight those small successes.
All right, thank you.
Don't jinx it.
Agreed.
In this day and age.
Ms. Rodriguez, you take credit for that.
Oh, no, the whole team takes credit. Good consultants. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
You caught it off guard when you asked that question.
Yeah, I know. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but we'll give you some credit for it anyway, okay?
Well, you can.
All right.
Take it.
All right, anything else for Ms. Rodriguez? Okay, none. All right, I believe that's it. Was anybody else going to present on this?
No, but we do want the approval to award. Is that a vote?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. That'll be my responsibility to make sure they do that. Okay, council, you've heard the information presented and the request, so I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So move. To award.
Second.
All right, motion properly made and seconded to award the contract as noted to the, was it North State Environmental?
State Environment Incorporated, correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, if you approve the motion, would you vote aye?
Aye.
If there's any opposition, no. And there is none. So,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your work on that. Okay, that concludes that item. That's the only item we have under new and old business. So I believe we're down to committee reports on our agenda. Are there any from any of our committees? Anybody?
Advisory, Parks and Rec. She's like, I'm on the spot. I think it'd be great if Maria would send the director's report to council that you provide for the committee. It really is very detailed and shows a lot of the activities and grant awards, but also programmatic stuff. It's like 3 or 4 pages, and I think it'd be helpful for council to see that. So that's all.
Maria, do you think you can provide that? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. No other committee reports. We will hear from our town manager for his report.
All right, Mayor, Town Council, going to start off, going to reverse the order of this a little bit, and give you the quarterly capital projects update, and I'll call Town Engineer Leah Harrison up to do that.
Okay. Good evening.
All right, it always seems so much faster than a quarter when we're back here again, but here we are with another quarterly capital project update. At this point, you have heard a little bit about all of these projects, I believe, so we will hit the highlights, and then I can certainly answer any questions that you might have.
Okay.
So on our Capitol Street and sidewalk projects, White Oak Roundabout, we are looking at bidding that project out around the beginning of the calendar year. We are authorized for construction through DOT because that is a LAP-funded project. Our only holdup right now is we're waiting on Duke to relocate some facilities that they have out there. You know, always one of the things that you're perpetually waiting on. But we are getting close and hoping that that will work out nicely so that the timing of the construction will coordinate with the school year timing so that the most impactful portion of the road construction can happen during the summer months when school is not in session. On Jones Sausage Road, we will be talking more about this project and other transportation projects at the October 30th meeting as well, with a more in-depth update. But in short, we are currently looking at some options that we have for LAP funding for that and looking at some value engineering to really kind of best determine the direction forward for that project. We have the Rand Mill Road and Main Street streetscape. Kind of a milestone on that is we have completed the final steps for the earmark grant. So I think it's taken some work, mostly on behalf of Mari Howe, thank her very much, to get that in place so that we can continue moving that project forward. The Aversboro and Gardner Road sidewalk projects, we recently had a public meeting for those. We are at 65% design. So making some final changes and starting to work on the easement acquisition there so that we can move forward on that project as well. And then our 2023 resurfacing project is currently underway. We have completed most of the concrete work. That would be upgrade of a lot of the ADA ramps and any broken sidewalk panels that we include in that contract. We have resurfaced within a couple neighborhoods at this point and have installed the speed tables on Pool Drive. The speed tables on Main Street will be installed possibly the end of this week. If not, it will be next week, depending on how the weather treats them by Friday. And then we will be getting all the signage in for the speed tables and the pavement markings as well. So still working through that one. Let's see. Heard about Meadowbrook Dam tonight, and you have recently heard about the South Garner Greenway project, so I think you are fairly up to date on those. On stormwater, Junction Boulevard is completely finished. Our next project will be the Forest Ridge Road culvert for stormwater, and we have just, I think, reached a milestone on the easement acquisition there, so I think we have gotten agreement from our final property owner, and we'll be able to move forward with that one in the next few months as well. We are also working on the stormwater assessment. We've completed phase 1 of that project, which was inventorying all of the infrastructure that we have and compiling that all into GIS so that we have an accurate inventory to manage our infrastructure moving forward. And now we're moving into the phase of looking at some drainage studies and really looking at the condition of that infrastructure to identify maintenance needs or projects that need to be completed. And that is a brief update. I do have updates on a few DOT projects as well. Kind of the highlights. We have the 50 and 70 bridge project, which is still showing tentative letting in November of this year. So looking to get that construction started hopefully in early 2024. And then the US 401 is the other kind of most closely pending project, and they are looking at letting that in the spring for hopeful construction start in the summer. And that's the project near Old Stage and 401, really in the vicinity of the project that we were just looking at earlier tonight. And we do have fully executed betterment agreements for both of those projects for the addition of the sidewalks and multi-use paths on and lighting within those projects that the town wanted to complete as well. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, to my right, anybody questions?
Question about the Pearl and Parker Street, and this, it came up in our DGA meeting, but what's the status of the development of that, of the townhomes and their improvements, and then the improvements that are listed here? And my memory is not great, but I thought they were going to be done in concert. And I'm seeing here we're doing the Parker and the west of Pearl, and then they're just going to do the east of Pearl. Were they originally supposed to do the Parker adjacent pieces too? What's the update?
Sure. How does it all work? Yeah, so by the rules of development, they are required to do the east side of Pearl and then the portion of Parker that they have development on. So that development straddles both sides of Parker, but only about halfway between Pearl Street and Montague. So those are the portions that they will be widening. There was a point when that project was coming through plan review with us that we had tried to do that collectively as a partnership project. The concern there, I think, was the developer wanted to move more quickly on their pieces than we are able to move because we have different procurement requirements. So we ended up separating those. So they are definitely on a quicker timeline than we are right now. So we are having them proceed with their work and ours will follow. So we will do the west side of Pearl Street all the way down, which will complete Pearl Street along with what they're doing on the east side. And then on Parker, we will pick up where they stop about halfway mid-block and carry that all the way to Montague. So between the two, both of those streets will be done in their entirety and our piece will come last.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a situation where they were moving at a slower pace or having issues and we were just going to go ahead and do it and try to do a reimbursement or something. I got it now.
Right. Yeah, hopefully not. They're,
okay.
Yeah, it's a little messy out there with what they're doing right now, but they seem to be moving forward. So we think it's working out.
Thank you.
Yes, the question in reference to the White Oak Roundabout.
Sure.
I heard that the lead is early next year on that project. What is the duration once construction starts to complete the project?
9 months.
9
so
months.
If we're hoping if we can start in the spring, we will be finished up by the end of 24 calendar year.
And I've noticed a lot of action, a lot of utilities relocations for the 70-50 bridge. There's a lot going on there. So hopefully that will finally happen, hopefully in November.
Hopefully, yeah. I've heard November for a few months now, so hopefully that won't keep changing. And I think they're in that utility relocation boat as well, where they're working on all of that.
So that means it's getting close. One last one in reference to Jones Sausage Road. Did we ever, or maybe we already received it, the estimate for the sewer impacts that are in front of the yards, some of the yards?
We do have some of that information. I think we will talk about that a little bit later tonight, and then we will have a full update on Jones Sausage Road at the October 30th meeting as well.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Kathy, did I get you? Greg?
So the Avisboro and Garner Road sidewalk and the Brown Road improvements and sidewalk all are, hopefully will be completed sometime next summer, based off what I'm looking at here.
Yes, yeah. Aversboro and Garner is definitely a little bit ahead of Bryan. You might recall on Bryan Road, we started that project really just looking at it as making that sidewalk connection and doing some minimal roadway improvements just to accommodate that. We expanded that scope slightly because with a little more road widening, we could get that 3-lane section through the entire section of Bryan Road rather than tapering from 3 back to 2 and then back to 3 again. So that has postponed our timeline a little bit, but we are at 65% plans on that. So we're still hopeful that by the spring, summer, we'll be ready to get that one moving.
And the project roundabout, based off what you stated, you said 9 months, so it should be through calendar year. So end of next year, we hope that project to be done.
Right, yes, that is the goal.
Thank you.
On the Bryan Road, what's the financial impact of doing the extra widening?
I can certainly pull the specific numbers. The numbers that we have in the budget now are with the extra widening. So it was obviously a higher cost, but less than it would be to come back later and do it. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthews?
Just one thing. It was brought up earlier right across from the depot on the Pearl Street. So just to make sure I understand it, they're going to do their side and we're going to do our side a little bit later. Is there, refresh my memory, why don't we just get it all done at one time?
It should happen in fairly close proximity of time. We didn't choose to actually do those projects together just because of the complication of the public work being done versus the private. So construction work is a lot harder for us to do than it is a private company just because we have a lot more requirements. And they did not want to be tied to our timeline and our restrictions in getting their work done. So we chose to let them move forward with theirs, and then we will have ours closely follow.
Okay.
We'd prefer not to have 2 different contractors working in there at the exact same time. That gets a little messy, but if we go last, at least we can make sure that it's all buttoned up in the end.
Okay, thank you.
As a reminder, our project, if it hasn't changed, included some on-street parking spaces. So I think that's still part of it. So it's a little more complicated than their side.
Right, potential on-street parking. We're looking at a few different adjustments, possibly lighting and sidewalk and things like that.
And our side's going to require some utility poles and some things to be relocated and reconfigured by Duke Power. So a little more complicated on that side, I think.
There is some curb and gutter out there on their side. I mean, they've done some. So it's just not complete.
Okay, we finished with Ms. Leah. All right, thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you very much.
Very good report. Bring us back another good report next time if you can. Mr. Manager, what else?
Turn it over to Assistant Town Manager Miller to give you an update on the Talk of the Town report.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mayor, members of council, good evening. Before you is your October Talk of the Town operating report. Just a few items I want to highlight for you this evening. One, we were able to hear back from Transportation System Management and Operations Unit with NCDOT regarding the traffic light at New Rand and Highway 70. And so they were able to go out and do some testing and take a look at it. They didn't observe any issues, and so they're not recommending any changes at this time, but staff will continue to monitor that particular traffic light. And if we see that or get reports that there's still an issue, we will reach back out to NCDOT. So I wanted to let you know that they have been responsive to that request. We've also been busy trimming down some trees on West Garner Street that were blocking the sidewalk. Want to thank Public Works for their diligence in doing that, just to make it a little easier to walk along the sidewalks there. There was a request at our last meeting regarding posting a development pipeline report on the town's website, and the planning department has been working on that. The target is to have that available by the end of the month, and then once it's available, to do monthly updates on that report. So the idea, we would load a PDF update monthly that then residents and businesses could take a look at as well. Boathouse planning, this is something that we've talked about in terms of the South Garner Greenway project, and wanted to let you know that Parks and Rec staff are underway with this project. First is we need to get some cost estimates on what master planning for a new boathouse would look like. We're thinking that since we're looking at an existing park and not having to do some master planning of a new park, it's not going to take as long. And so we're hoping that by the end of the fiscal year, we'll be able to do that work and then be able to plan for future CIP projects based on the information we receive with the master planning process. Parks, Rec, and Cultural Resources has a number of activities coming up. They're hosting GPAC is hosting the Heritage Brass Ensemble of the U.S. Air Force on October 24th at 7:30. We have our very popular Trick or Trail the Treats being held at White Deer Park on the 31st from 3 to 6. We had a great turnout last year, bringing it back from the COVID years, and it's a great time for both the kids and adults. So, and then we have our annual Veterans Day commemoration. It will be held on Veterans Day this year, which is Saturday, from 10:30 to 12, and it will be hosted at the Avisboro Road Baptist Church. On the second page of your report are your monthly analytics from the Garner Info app. The last 30 days, we've had 30 requests. On the left-hand side, you can see the types of requests that came in through the app itself. Of those requests, 90% have either been completed or in progress. And once again, our Public Works Department and Inspections Department stay very busy. They've responded to 83% of those submissions to the Garner Info app. Finally, on the last 2 pages, we've included the quarterly development statistics that we include as part of the report. The information includes COs issued for new residential buildings, trends for COs issued by month, as well as the cost of new residential construction by CO date and inspections conducted per quarter. So this is the additional information we add on a quarterly basis just to keep council up to date on some of the trends and data that we're seeing on the developmental services side. So that's our brief report today, and we're happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Ms. Miller, so much. Questions from Ms. Miller? Kathy, have you? Mr. Dillinger.
I just have a question on the inspections. How are y'all keeping up with that?
Our Director Pageant?
Yeah.
Ask him to come to the podium and talk about his strategies for his dedicated and talented team.
Those are skyrocketing numbers.
Thank you. Yeah, the staff is staying very busy. We've really tried to create areas for them so they're not spending a lot of time driving. We're actually utilizing some of our fire inspectors for some trade stuff as well, since they're part of the group. But we are continually evaluating our staffing and what we can do to make it more efficient. Yeah, I've got a great group of folks.
Is there anything else that you all need resource-wise?
We're evaluating resources, and likely we'll come back mid-year with a proposal to possibly add some help there.
Yeah, I mean, we stayed steady in the beginning, and then we've just seen that dramatic increase. We did bring online Edge of Auburn and 401 Exchange, and they've been very active. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. In reference to the boathouse planning, last month we discussed, went back and forth, had a great briefing on the trail to include the boathouse, and we discussed possibly incorporating a feasibility study. Is the master plan going to cover what the feasibility study would have?
Yes, it will. It will. Okay. So it'll give us an opportunity to look at options for relocating the boathouse, and then look at terms of master planning the Lake Benson area. What we would need to do in order to accommodate that.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
I just want to make a comment on inspections, if I could. I know you guys are having to run turbocharged down there due to lack of staff, and I know the manager just addressed it. And there's a lot coming, so let's don't procrastinate on getting what we need to get the job done, because it's just going to get busier, and you don't want to get a lap down. You want to stay on the lead lap, if not up in the top 10. So let us know what's going on. Let's fix it. That's a good thing.
All right.
Mr. Matthews just volunteered to serve on the pit crew. So,
Absolutely.
like,
All right. Was there anything else, Mr. Manager?
We have the quarterly financial report, and I know our finance director's not here, but I think that, oh, is he here? Is he behind? You're hiding. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I was trying to find you, but I didn't see you.
I'm short. You can't see me behind the monitor.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll keep my comments very brief and just see if anyone has any questions, but you do have the quarterly financial report included in your packet. The first quarter is always, sort of slow revenue-wise until we pick up with sales tax and property tax. So you'll see that year to date, we're running a deficit, which is normal and fairly comparable to the deficit we were at this time last year. Sales tax, the way we book it, our July sales tax revenue gets booked this month in October, so it's not reflected in this report, but I did get the numbers prior to this meeting, and we did have a year-over-year about a 6% increase in sales tax revenue, so a good increase. We've had months, where we were double digit, so it's kind of been up and down a little bit, but it's been mostly positive, and starting out the new fiscal year is mostly positive as well with the increase. On the expenditure side, a good bit of our debt service is front-loaded in the fiscal year, so we've paid about 40% of our total debt service already this fiscal year, so that, again, factors into that deficit you see so far this fiscal year, but everything, budget-wise appears on track, revenues and expenditures, nothing, terribly unexpected or out of the ordinary so far this fiscal year, so I think we're still well-positioned financially at this point.
Okay, good news. Thank you. Questions for our finance director? Any?
Just a quick reval question. What's sort of the timetable for that? And is there any sort of preliminary insights that the county gives us, or trends or anything?
Yeah, so I think we should start to receive some information from the county either this month or early next month. I had asked if they were going to hold a briefing for budget and finance staff. They did that the last reval. And then they also came and did a presentation to council. So I'm not exactly sure what his calendar is for those types of meetings and what that's going to look like. But as far as the preliminary information, that should be coming within the next few weeks.
No questions.
Okay, down here. Mr. Gray. Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I could also just comment and make the council aware, one of the big items that the council was so gracious to fund in the current year budget was our pay and class study. And I just wanted to let you know that that has been implemented as of the 25th of September. And this past Friday was the first day that staff saw those increases in their paychecks. So I just wanted to let you know, and we're hearing lots of positive comments and thank yous from staff on that, and I just wanted to make you aware.
Thank you. You're just full of good news down there, aren't you? Which is great. Yeah.
Check my deposit and see how that impacted
Okay.
me.
Yeah. Christmas came earlier, yes. But thank you. Yeah, that's great. I'm happy for our staff for sure. Let's see, Mr. Manager, did I?
That concludes my reports.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll give council an opportunity to make a report, and I'll start with Mr. Matthews.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Singleton.
Yes, I had a citizen reach out to me in regards to the sidewalk ramps on Old Scarborough and Hadrian. Talked about they left some cones out there, and they wanted to know if we're going to go back and put down any seed, grass seed. Is that coming? Or I mean, this project must not be finished yet because you said there were cones at a couple of the intersections.
That's part of the resurfacing project. We have a section of Hadrian that'll be resurfaced this year. So any ramps that we touch, we go ahead and upgrade at the same time. But yeah, usually they'll do the concrete work, and then within a couple of days, they'll be coming back to backfill and everything once they remove the form. So they will be coming back to backfill and to seed.
I just want to make sure because they had done some of that work last week, so he was asking if he knew when that was going to happen, so I'll relay the message.
Yeah, I'll double check on it tomorrow and see what their timeline is, make sure they're going to get out there soon.
All right.
Ms. Barringer.
I have several this evening. Let's see, 106, 108 West Garner Road. It's a duplex. They keep it mowed beautifully, but the person who does the mowing never picks up anything in the yard before he mows. And it looks like it's snowed in that yard today. He ran over a food container and cut it up into a million pieces. And is there something that we can do to get the property owner to direct the people who cut the grass to at least pick up the trash before they cut it? It's been an ongoing situation, and it's a million times worse today than it has been. And that's 106, 108 West Garner Road. Also, the light, let's see if I can say this right, the Garner Senior sign, the light that shines on it from the west side, the light is working, but it's broken and bending over, so it's not flashing on, not reflecting on the sign itself. It's been that way for a while, but we noticed this morning that it was not non-functional, it's just broken over. So if we can get that fixed. Also, we've seen it for a long, long time. There is a dead tree that has fallen over and almost sticking up the other way at the used car lot at the corner of Jurgen Road and 70 West, small used car lot. Can we get that? Suggest to the owner that they do something about that. It looks terrible. It looks like Halloween all year round. And it's very unattractive, period, but especially for his car lot. And then also, this is inside the White Oak Shopping Center as you turn right, if you're coming from Timber, go into the shopping center, turn right to go up to Target. There at the corner where Wendy's is, there is a cavern instead of a hole, where big trucks have gone over the curb. But it's terrible. If we can suggest to the property manager that they do something permanent to fill that spot up, because refilling it with dirt is doing nothing. And that's it for tonight.
Okay, Mr. Dillinger.
One thing, coming out of the rec center, it looked like the rec center illuminated light is uneven, or there are some bulbs out or something. It just isn't lit brightly. It's hard to read. I just noticed it. That's all I've got.
Mr. Vance.
Yes, I would like to commend the staff for particularly the New Rand Road traffic light. I know that I stayed on it for a while, and I know that DOT was short in staff in getting to it. And I appreciate the diligence in staying on that and getting a report back. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, I believe I covered everybody. And Mr. Manager, I had one, we talked about this, I guess, but I want to go ahead and ask you. I know we had the unfortunate accident at the senior center where a vehicle struck that. Can you tell me and others who are interested what the status of the repairs on that?
Yes, we just let the contract for that. There was a delay in that contract. There was some concerns about how the contract was executed, so we had to reroute it back through to the contractor. And my understanding is the contractors already had a window contractor out there or sub out there doing some measurements for the windows and ordering the brick and matching the brick, sourcing the brick. And the work should start anytime and is scheduled to be done by the end of November. And I did meet with personnel from Meals on Wheels yesterday out at the senior center and gave them an update on the expected completion of that project.
Okay, very good. Thanks, sir, for follow-up on that. And with that, that's all I have. So did I cover everybody? Miss anybody? Okay. So I believe that takes care of our main business. So we have closed sessions now that I'll entertain a motion for.
I move pursuant to NC General Statutes 143, 318, 11, subset A, subset 5, to discuss possible real estate acquisition and the town's negotiating position regarding such real estate.
Okay,
I'd
and
also like
Mr.
to
Vance, yeah.
amend that to include discuss personnel matter, A6 as well.
11-A, subset A, subset 6.
Okay, all right, council, you've heard that request to go into closed session. If you're in favor of the motion, would you vote aye?
Aye.
If there's any opposition, no. And, okay, I'm going to declare that the council will move to closed session. I believe we'll probably move to the think we can go ahead and start. Okay, we've got a quorum. Okay, the mayor declares that the Garner Town Council is now back in open session, having gone to closed session to discuss items relating to real estate acquisition and the town's position on that, and other matters related to it. We also dealt with a personnel issue that has to do with an evaluation of an employee. And so those were the two items, and that was all. So, council, unless there's anything else to come before us, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. If you favor the motion to adjourn, would you say aye?
Aye.
And if there's opposition, none? Okay, thank you all. I declare